practice. So we're located outside of San Diego. We work with donors throughout the nation, and we work with surrogates primarily in California or Nevada because of the laws and because we like to be more involved with our surrogates. This is one of our couples, and if you have seen the video documentary about Jens and Andreas, down here is Rose, and she was in the documentary. She was their donor. She is the head of my surrogate program. She has been a donor a couple of times. This is a family from Germany, and sorry, let me just shut this off. She donated to them, and they now have 2 children. But we have been helping German families since 1999. So we have a long history with our German families. I have family that lives in Germany, and our staff feels very connected to our German families. It's important that you know we never charge an international fee just because you're in another country. We treat you the same as our national couples, families. This is Susan, another person from the documentary, and this is her giving birth for one of her surrogacies that she was involved in before she began to work for us. And she's holding the hand of the intended father as she's in labor. And our goal in surrogacy relationships is for you to have a relationship that meets your needs and the surrogate's needs. So in this case, they became very bonded together, and he was there at the delivery. One of the things that Dr. Ringler already went over was the requirements for the surrogate. What I want you to understand about agencies is that we are the information gatherers. We gather everything, and then we give this information to the people who will then screen your surrogate or donor. So we get profiles, we get OB clearance, we get previous delivery records. We do a home visit, although during COVID, we're not able to go into their home right now. We also get criminal and civil background checks, and we obtain the psychological clearance. We give all of this to Dr. Ringler or whichever clinic you're working with. They review all the records, and they make the final determination of who is a good candidate. So while it's the agency's responsibility to do our best, I know what Dr. Ringler wants in a candidate, and so I don't present candidates to him that don't meet his criteria. So when you're looking for an agency, please understand that that should be the agency's responsibility, is to have all that information so that your clinic can make a good decision. These were some of the qualifications. Dr. Ringler went over some of them. We make sure that they don't smoke, they live in a stable home environment. Dr. Ringler will do drug testing, alcohol testing to make sure that they're not doing that. And then we want to make sure that they are fully committed. So we have our own process for a pre-screening, and only once we're satisfied would we even try to match a surrogate with somebody else. The important thing to know about a matching process is that there's 2 people involved, and you want to come to an agreement of, how this is going to go. So Dr. Ringler mentioned single embryo transfer. Sometimes they will do 2. You want to make sure that the surrogate is willing to accept more than 1 embryo. What will you do if an embryo splits? It doesn't happen often, but it does happen. And so we need to make sure that you're matched with a surrogate who is willing to either reduce or to carry if that happens. There's so much testing now that can be done that is non-invasive. And so our surrogates do all of that testing. They do nucleofolds, looking for Down syndrome. At 16 to 18 weeks, they do a head-to-toe anatomy scan. They do a blood test now that they say is equal to amniocentesis results. But sometimes you still have results come back that require, or they are recommending, a more invasive treatment. So you just want to make sure that your surrogate's willing to have an invasive treatment. Termination is a hard one. You work so hard to get to this point, and it's just heartbreaking if there is a problem with the fetus. But some surrogates have very strong feelings about what they will and will not terminate for. So Down syndrome is one that if you would terminate for Down syndrome, you really want to make sure you have a surrogate willing to do that. And then we go into life-threatening, severe defects. What constitutes a severe defect? And that's something that you, in conjunction with the obstetrician and the surrogate, will discuss and come to a conclusion on. The biggest thing that we find that makes a successful surrogacy is level of communication. So if you're a person who doesn't want to be emailing, texting, video chatting, you want a surrogate who's really okay with that. In most cases, they certainly are in touch after each appointment, but we have some people that are on text all the time. So when you're thinking about a relationship with a surrogate, please understand your level of commitment to her as well, how much you will communicate with her and in what form. And that is really, we want to make sure that you're both on the same page. Egg donation. Dr. Ringler did a great job of talking about what he's looking for with an egg donor. I just want to say that, beyond that, most clinics require a genetic consult at the very least of a donor. Usually there's genetic testing done on both the sperm contributor and the egg donor. And so as an agency, we try to get as much information as we can up front about their family history. We're looking for heritable conditions, more than one person with heart disease, diabetes, other genetic conditions. And we eliminate those as much as we can up front, but we still can't see what's going on underneath without the genetic testing. Mental health issues, that's another thing to be concerned about. It's not just a pretty face or someone who's smart or has the characteristics you're looking for. You want to have a healthy donor in other ways, mentally, genetically, physically. And so that's, again, a job that I believe as an agency we have to get this information and give it to Dr. Ringler for him to then make a decision. Other things to consider when you're looking for donors, what's most important to you, as Dr. Ringler said, is it how she looks? Is it her education, location? There's all kinds of things. We don't judge. That's not our job to judge. You choose the donor that's best for your family. We're here to assist you find that kind of a donor. We have different types of donations, relationships, an anonymous donation, which is, even though we call it that, it's not a reality any longer because of the genetic testing that can be done out on the market. People are finding each other, regardless of how much they wanted to remain anonymous. So we don't encourage anonymous donation. We encourage at least a semi-open donation where you talk, you meet, you video chat, you have opportunity to know her, and also that she will agree to meet a child in the future if that's what everybody wants. And then known donation is you share all your information, everybody knows everything about each other, and you communicate after the donation is done. We allow for video chats, phone calls, in-person meetings. We want you to be happy with your donor choice, but we also want the donor to be happy with who she is giving her ovum to. So for us, it's important to have a mutually respectful relationship, and that's why we encourage in-person contact. I mean, video, not right now with COVID, in person. Then there's donor sibling registry. Do you want her to register there so that you can reach her, or do you want to communicate through the agency or directly with her? Dr. Ringler spoke about the sperm source and that what he can do now in many countries. And so that's something that you need to consider and talk to your doctor about before you start a cycle. And then this is a really important one. What do you plan to do with the eggs that you retrieve? Do you plan to use them all for your own family creation, fertilize them all, grow them all, and choose to use them? Do you want to freeze some, donate the remaining? Do you want to create embryos, but once your family is complete, donate those embryos to another family to help them? Do you want to donate embryos to research or destroy them? This is something that will be covered in the legal contract that Michelle will create for you, because it's most important that the donor be in agreement. She may have to sign consents later on. And so you don't want to go into a situation where you want to donate the embryos and she hasn't ever agreed to that. Qualifications, again, Dr. Ringler already went through this, but we have a lot of other ones that we go over as well. And this is going to be in the slide that you can have. I don't want to do it now. We have a Facebook group that we formed based on our German families saying that they did not have the freedom to talk openly in Germany in a social media setting. So we created a Facebook group that is for German, not just German families, but it's starting as a German surrogacy connection. It is monitored by families that we worked with who live in Germany, who experienced surrogacy, and who are willing to share their own experiences with you and help guide you through this. And lastly, this is our team here at A Perfect Match. Again, this is Rose and Susan, who were in the documentary, and that's, if you talk about surrogacy, that's who you would be talking to. This is my surrogate baby down on the bottom. And the important thing is to have a professional team. You want an attorney who is going to be able to really protect you and give you a contract that makes sure it covers everything and makes you the parent. You know, it's if you don't have the right language, she can't go to court and get a judgment. So it's important to have a really experienced attorney. Michelle's been doing this for 15 years, Michelle, 16 years. And Dr. Ringler has great success. So it's important when you put together a team that you do have an attorney who is experienced, a doctor who is successful, and an agency that is committed to having everything done to make this a success for you. Just want to end with saying, during COVID, it's a very challenging time. We have had a few surrogates that did get COVID while they were pregnant. I'm happy to say that there were no long-term effects. They delivered healthy babies and they are fine. Some of our donors, sadly, have ended up testing positive for COVID. And there is a delay in cycles when that happens, and it's for your protection and for the protection of the fetus. So please stay safe during this time. And I'm going to now turn it over to Michelle.